Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn how to make fresh pasta, and then on the second day of lab we are going to turn that fresh pasta into Aglio e Olio. It translates to garlic and oil in Italian. Our objectives of the lesson are to discover different kitchen accidents and how they can happen, and also how to prevent those accidents from happening. On day one, we're just gonna make the noodles. So here's our prep or mise en place for day one. You are going to need a spoon, a dry 1 cup measuring cup, a large bowl, a little extra flour in a little cup. You'll need a butter knife and a fork, kosher salt, measuring spoons, olive oil, a small bowl and 2 eggs, and then a large glass plate where you can put your noodles when they're finished. For day one, you're also going to need a pasta roller, which comes with these 4 parts. Now I'll show you how to put it all together. Okay, to set up your pasta roller, we have this is the base, and it's got different numbers on the side. The higher the number, the thinner the pasta. So you're always going to want to start at the 1. This is your handle. You'll use that to turn the noodles. And all you do is fit it in like a little puzzle piece. It's got some nooks and crannies and you just match them up. You'll be able to, need some oil, to roll this out. To put this on, it's just like another little puzzle piece. There are some latches that you can slide this into. Make sure it's nice and tight in there and that it won't fall out. At this point, we've attached everything but the anchor, and that's what's going to stabilize this while we make our pasta. So what you're going to do is put this into this hole and then turn this until it's tight. And if you give it a little wiggle, it will not fall over. This part is very heavy. Once your pasta roller is all set up properly, it will look like this. And now you're ready to roll. We're gonna begin with day one. So our recipe calls for 1 cup of all-purpose flour. And remember, when we measure flour, we've gotta make sure to fluff it up first. Then we will scoop it into our 1 cup measuring cup. You always wanna over measure flour first, and then you can knock off the excess when you go to use the back of a knife. All right, so I have it over measured right now. I'm gonna give it 1 tap if there's any air bubbles, and then I'm going to give it a nice scrape. And it says to make a well. And what that means is you are going to basically put like a little hole in the middle, like a little nest for an egg to sit in, so that it doesn't get all over the bowl, and so that we can slowly incorporate the flour into the noodles that we're making. So that's what a well looks like. Then what we're going to do is we will crack 1 egg. I'm going to put my egg directly in that well, and then I'm gonna do the same with the next egg. There's no shells in this one, so I'm going to put that right in that little nest. Clean as I go, throw away my eggshell. I'm going to add a pinch of kosher salt, about this much, to the mixture. And then I'm gonna add about a teaspoon of olive oil. Here's my olive oil. My 1 teaspoon measuring spoon. And that'll go right in there. And you'll need your large plate. Pretty much all we're going to do now is poke the yolks of the eggs and start very, very slowly incorporating the flour into the noodles by moving your fork in a circular motion. This should take about 5 or so minutes. You really want to incorporate that flour slowly. Right now, we have this. I can see that there's definitely some flour in the eggs, but we still got quite a bit to go. At this point, this is what it will look like. Eventually, it will turn into a shaggy dough like this. That's okay. At this point, you can drop your fork and start using your hands. I'm going to just bring that together with my hands like so. It's a little bit sticky. And you're definitely going to want to get all that flour in the mix. It will absorb, it just needs some resting time sometimes. And you can even use your knuckles or the back of your hand to try and make sure that all those little crumblies get in there in your pasta dough. Your fingers might get a little covered in dough, so just go ahead and give those a little scrape too. You want to make sure you get the highest yield from your dough. And what yield means is after everything is all said and done, how much of something that a recipe makes. When your dough comes together, it should look roughly like this. And then what we're gonna do is with our little bowl of flour, we are going to lightly flour our work surface. And what I like to do is hold the flour up pretty darn high from the table, because then what's gonna happen is it's going to disperse more evenly, as you can see. And then what I will do is I'm going to knead my dough like this. You'll push with the heel of your hand, give it a quarter turn, fold it back on itself, and push again. Another quarter turn, fold, push, fold, push, fold, push. And you will do this for 6 to 10 minutes until the dough does not look lumpy like this. See how it's kind of lumpy there? You want it to be a nice, smooth dough. All right, when my dough is done, it's going to look like this. You are going to take a little bit more of that flour, sprinkle it on there. You're going to flatten it out as much as you can with your hands. And then at this point, you will either wrap and refrigerate or rest for 10 to 15 minutes before we roll out our pasta dough. So my dough has rested, and now what I'm going to do is, again, sprinkle a little bit more flour, just a tiny bit this time. And since it's rested, it will stretch out a lot better. And what we're trying to do is kind of make like a rectangle. So you can even just shape it with your hands and flatten it as much as possible, because we are going to be putting it through the pasta roller. A good idea at this time is to use a cutting board and slice this in half with the chef's knife so that it's more manageable when we run it through. So I'm gonna go grab a cutting board and I'll be right back. So I'll just give it a slice down the middle. So then it's gonna make it a lot more manageable, and you still wanna make it that rectangular shape. And you can kind of just squeeze it with your fingers. This is the way that the noodles will go lengthwise. This is about the thickness that you can start running your pasta dough through the pasta roller. So go ahead and flatten out your pasta until it is about this thick. So we've sliced our dough in half, and now what I'm gonna do is actually take a little sprinkle of the flour and just sprinkle it right where you're going to roll the pasta. That's gonna keep it from sticking to the rollers. Then what you'll do is you'll make sure that this is on a 1, which it is, and you will start rolling the pasta in. If it doesn't grab the pasta right off the bat, that means it needs to be flattened out a little bit more. Now here's our first run of the dough. I'm gonna change it to a number 2 now. And I'm also going to lightly flour this just so it doesn't stick. And roll it at a 2. So that's at a 2. Now I'm gonna change it. We'll go all the way to a 4 now. Flour it just a little more to keep it from sticking. And run it through one more time. Once I have it at a 4, I'm gonna roll it through one last time and then move on to the second half of the dough. So right now, it's about this long and about this thin. Once you've rolled out both pasta doughs, this is how they should look. You will make sure that you put your handle in whichever one you would like to, and then you're gonna do the same process now that it's all the same thickness. I'm gonna show you what our thick pasta looks like first. You'll definitely want to make sure that you flour the pasta roller as well as the pasta at this time, because this is where the pasta really tends to stick. So these are our thick noodles, and that's what they will look like when they're done. All right, now I'm gonna show you the second thinner noodle. So I'm going to, again, lightly sprinkle some flour. Make sure we dust this side with flour. The thinner noodles get stuck together the absolute most, so you really need to make sure that you have floured everything well. I'll attach the hook again and roll this right through. Make sure that you hold your pasta so it doesn't rip. And when you're done, this is what the thinner pasta will look like. You can either cook it from right here, or you can let it dry and cook it at a later time. When your noodles are finished, they will either look, these are the thinner ones, these are the thicker ones that we did first, like that, or like that. For day 2 tools and equipment, you will need a rubber scraper, a ladle, a liquid measuring cup, a large stock pot with a lid, a colander to drain your pasta, tongs, and a large saute pan. You'll need a 1/4 cup dry measuring cup. On day 2, you'll also need kosher salt, olive oil, black pepper, crushed red pepper, parsley flakes, Parmesan cheese. You'll need some pot holders, and you will need your pasta. Here's our garlic as well. You'll need a cutting board with a damp towel underneath to stabilize it, and you'll need a chef's knife. What I'm gonna do for mise en place on day 2 is I'm going to chop up my garlic. We're gonna mince it. And remember from the video, I have my clove of garlic. You are going to take your knife and run it horizontally. Give the garlic clove a good smash, and then you can peel that off. And then what you're gonna do is slice that little tip off. Our recipe calls for 4 cloves of garlic, but the beauty of savory cooking is that you can kind of cater it to your own taste buds. There's really nothing extremely scientific about it, like in baking when you have to be very precise. Savory cooking is fun. You kind of get to be creative and adjust the recipes. My garlic is all prepped. I took the peel off and I took the little ends off of the garlic. And now what I'm going to do is, since we smashed them, that kind of opened up the flavor of it. So you are going to use the knife skills that you practiced. And just slice up that aglio, or garlic. So at this point we have sliced garlic. And if you want a more delicate garlic flavor, leave it like this. The more you chop garlic, the finer you chop garlic, the more pungent it smells. So the recipe calls for a mince. I love the flavor of garlic, so I am gonna run my knife through like that, gathering that all up. And then the way I'm doing this is I have a very light grip on the end of my knife, and then I have my hand on top of this knife, and I'm kind of gonna rock it like a seesaw. So I hold one side of the knife down like this, I'll show you better, and then I just move the back end of the knife right through the garlic as many times as you need to. You want to have uniform pieces of garlic, so they should all be the same size roughly. I'm going to run my knife through one more time. Gather up that garlic. And this is what it should look like. On day 2, you're going to come to class and get your water going to a rolling boil. But first you're going to need to season it with some kosher salt. So you want your large stock pot about halfway full of water for this pasta. And you are going to liberally season the water with salt. It should taste like the base of a soup. If it does not, if it tastes just like water, go ahead and add more salt. This is going to make a huge flavor difference in your noodles. Go ahead and put the lid on. Once you've tasted your seasoned water, you will turn the burner on pretty high, but remember, since we're focusing on kitchen safety, the flame should never go over the sides of the pot. Our recipe calls for 1/4 cup of olive oil. So I'm going to start with a liquid measuring cup, get down to eye level, and fill that up just to the 1/4 cup line. Again, with savory cooking, you're welcome to adjust, but this is a good starting point. And you're gonna measure out your Parmesan cheese in that dry measuring cup. Just a quick reminder, when you want to cook, you want to think like a chef. So you wanna set yourself up really nicely. I know that I'm going to need pot holders later. I have my pasta right here to drop into my boiling water. Right here's where I'm going to make the Aglio e Olio. And then I have all my ingredients that I need right here as well. That makes it so much easier to cook. At this point, we're bringing our water up to a boil, and I'm going to put my stovetop between a 3 and a 4, more towards the 4 side. And I'm going to add my 1/4 cup of olive oil. This is a sauce that cooks really fast. So I've had my oil heating up for about 30 seconds. And you want to cook garlic on a pretty low heat because it burns fast. Now I can see that my garlic is already frying up here. And this is in real time. I'm going to turn my burner to low. And you can add your red pepper flakes at this time. I love spice, so I'm going to add a ton of red pepper flakes to make this really spicy, really flavorful. This is also going to toast the red pepper flakes as well and bring out all of their flavors because they've been dried. Once you have your oil, your garlic, and your red pepper flakes, you are good to add your dried parsley. And you're just going to do this visually to taste it. Add some color to your pasta. Some texture too. Now, my sauce is almost done. So I'm going to take the top off of this pot of water. And I'm going to drop in, I have my thicker pasta here and my thinner pasta here, so I'm going to drop my thicker pasta first. That's gonna take a little bit longer to cook. fresh pasta, the beauty of it is it only takes about 3 to 4 minutes to cook. So with that, I'm gonna let those cook about 1 minute, and then I'm gonna drop the other pasta in there. Once your pasta is almost done cooking, you are going to just dip your liquid measuring cup in there. It doesn't need to be precise. And you're going to reserve some pasta water. The reason why we do it at the very end is because all the starch from those noodles is now in that pasta water, along with the seasoning, the salt that we used. So it's going to give the pasta really good flavor. Once you think your pasta's done, when it's been cooking for about 3 to 4 minutes, go ahead and use these bad boys and try a noodle or two. When you decide that the pasta is al dente, which means it has a little bit of a bite to it, but it's not super mushy, it means to the tooth, you will go and drain it in the sink in our colander. So we're going to finish the pasta now. So you will use 2 hands to dump the pasta into your saute pan. And then you're going to add a little bit of pasta water, just a splash. Turn that up and give it a stir. Make sure you really coat the pasta in the sauce. And then you're gonna let that simmer until the pasta water boils off. Once your pasta water has boiled off, you are free to sprinkle your Parmesan cheese. Give it another stir. And then once everything is equally coated, you are good to plate this up. I'm gonna show you how to do it. To plate up our pasta, we are going to need tongs, a ladle, whatever you are putting it on, and then you can use all of the above ingredients to garnish. And what you're gonna do is, you'll take a serving size with your tongs, you'll spin it around right in here, so it makes like a little bird's nest. And then you will gently transfer that to your plate. Give it another quick spin just to make sure that it's nice and twisty. There we go, we got some height on that. And then a good rule of thumb for chefs is when you are presenting a dish, you want to let everyone know what's in that dish as a garnish. So on top, I'm gonna put a little bit of red pepper flakes. I like black pepper, so I'm just going to add some of that. You can too. We're gonna put a little bit of Parmesan cheese, again, just so people know that there's cheese in this. And then we will finish it with some parsley flakes. And when you're all done, it should look like this.